We're gonna switch the phone at some point, which usually, hopefully is not awkward because Robert follows me around once I do the intro so that everybody can see everything. So just so you know.
We don't need to know that.
Okay.
Get away.
Well, it's just so you know, I'm not like dropping the phone or being lame. I'm trying to switch the picture. And I'm not always good at it.
Go for it.
Okay. Okay. Hi, everybody. First, I want to thank Ginat for inviting me to do this. It's been a long time since we saw each other, and a lot has happened. I think of you every day, and I think of our Sheldon every day.
Oh.
I'll just tell a quick story. When I came to Israel to teach several years ago, I can still see Sheldon with the skip in his step going to the bank to exchange money to pay us when he thought there wouldn't be any money to pay us at all. And I have such fond memories of both of you, actually. But yeah, anyway. So today, I know our time is short. So today I'm here to talk to you about post-pandemic wellness. And I'm not really sure we're post-pandemic yet. I know we're not in America. But I'm going to talk to you about the fact that in the world, so many of us are metabolically unfit to fight disease because of the foods that we choose to eat. Even cultures who used to embrace a traditional way of eating seem to be adopting, I'm sorry to say, the American way of doing things. Fast food, packaged food, frozen food, lots of animal food. And they seem to be beginning to lose their way as we have massively in this country. Fortunately, there are countries like Israel and Italy and France and Spain where traditional eating still has a very strong foothold. So I have hope. But today we're going to make 3 dishes that are, 2 of them are Mediterranean. One of them is a sort of substitute for an American junk food. And that's dessert, of course. And each one of them are made of ingredients that can help us to strengthen our immune system so that after all of this is over, we can remain strong before the next one hits us, because if we think this is one and done, we would be wrong. And I am the opposite of many people in the macrobiotic community in that I believe in what scientists are telling us, and that while I believe many people have strong immune systems, I think that getting vaccinated is not always just for you. I tend to subscribe to the Italian way of thinking, which is that we also do it for each other. You know, our job is to take care of each other, and maybe our immune system is strong, but someone else's isn't. The vaccine, in my opinion, and in my research, hasn't harmed us or anyone that we know of. Yes, there are a few rare cases, but I do believe that we also have to do it for each other. So you may make your decision, but please don't make your decision based on what you hear on Facebook. Please read real news, real science, and make your decision. So that said, let's make dessert. And it's, so I gotta figure out how to turn the phone. Hold on. Camera. Okay, it's switched. Robert, you're up. Okay, so dessert is really easy. It's a no bake. I usually only make this in the summer, but I had a request to do a dessert that didn't contain brie. Called Almond Joyfuls. You do have recipes for everything. I will tell you that I will change them. So I'll change them. I'll do whatever I want with them because that's how I cook. When I teach cooking, my goal for you is to learn how to cook, not learn how to read a recipe. If you can read a recipe. My goal is for you to open your fridge and say, oh, this is what I have. This is what I'm going to make. Now with desserts, usually you have to have at least the ingredients on hand that are going to make the dessert. But this one's really easy. This one, if this one was any easier, it would make itself. I'm making a half batch of your recipe because I'm actually going to use these little treats to garnish this chocolate cake that I'm bringing to a dinner party tonight. So I'm only making
my heart out.
Right? Sorry. So having this in my food processor, I have a table and a half of vegan butter substitute. You may use
That'd be a tablespoon and a half. There's not a
a
tablespoon.
tablespoon and a half, right? Sorry, tablespoon and a half.
I cannot. You look lovely.
Oh, hi, Robert.
And you may decide which vegan butter you either can get or the one that you like. I use vegan butter only in desserts. I don't use it for anything else. We don't put it on toast or, you know, we're not big butter eaters because we're Italian. We tend to use olive oil for everything. But that said, so into this goes a little pinch of salt.
So I missed it, Christina. If we don't have these fake butters, what to do?
I guess since this is a treat, can you get coconut oil?
Yo, yes.
No, yes?
Yes, yes. That was a yes.
So coconut oil. It's a very special treat. I don't like coconut oil very much because it's a solid fat, which I don't love. Saturated fat rather. This is a solid fat too. You really can't do this with a liquid oil. I've tried. They just don't work. So you're going to have to go with coconut oil.
So far, what's in?
Oh, so far what's in here is a tablespoon and a half of vegan butter substitute and a tablespoon and a half, 2 tablespoons of brown rice syrup. If you can't get brown rice syrup, you can use date syrup, coconut sugar syrup. It's got to be liquid. You could use maple syrup, but it's going to give you a mapley flavor. If you don't mind that, then great. A pinch of salt, some cinnamon, and I am adding to this a little vanilla because I can. And I love vanilla, so you don't have to. It's not in your recipe, but I love it, so it's going in.
Christina is making the almond
Joyfuls, yeah. And now goes in a cup of unsweetened shredded coconut. That's a half cup and another half cup and a touch because my first half cup wasn't quite full. Not at all. When you cook, it's important that you relax. Don't worry so much about precision. Worry about your passion about the dish that you're making, the cooking that you're doing. Make sure that you love it. Here we go. I'm not really good with these jars either. And you're going to do this until you have a nice, sticky, sort of clumpy batter. Sorry about the noise. I suppose you could do this by hand. I suppose. It doesn't really mix as well by hand. This is one of the few times I use a food processor. I'm not much for gadgets. All they do is require cleaning and they drive me crazy and I'm not good at them. So they tend to confound me more than anything. All right, so you've got a nice sticky sort of lumpy mixture. And now we're going to gather it, that all the rice syrup is mixed in or whatever syrup you're using. You do need to use a liquid sweetener for this because you have no other liquid. And otherwise they won't hold together. There's not enough vanilla in the world to hold this together. Okay, so you see how that texture is? It's sort of sticky. Now I'm going to I use a miniature ice cream scoop so that I get uniform sizes. As a baker, the one thing I do like to have is uniform size on things. Because usually I'm baking. And so when you're baking, you want things to be the same, you know, so that they bake evenly. This doesn't matter so much, and I'm going to clean these up because it's a no bake. And the reason I'm putting them on a plate is because these are going to go into the fridge to set. Now, if you use coconut oil, I'm not really sure they need to go in the fridge. I'm thinking about this for a second. I really don't think they need to go in the fridge if you use coconut oil. So what you're looking to create are these little
Christina, I
mounds.
think just the opposite, because if you put it in the fridge, the coconut oil will harden. And if
Yeah.
the coconut oil melts, you're in trouble.
Is that true? I didn't think that it melt. I never use a ganat, so I don't know that does it melt?
Yeah,
I
it'll
guess
get
it melts,
liquid.
right?
Solid fat.
Yeah, so then you know what, guys, follow the recipe. If you're using coconut oil, put them in the fridge, because that it's not gonna hurt them, but it is gonna serve you in the end. So these are gonna go in the fridge, and then when they come out in a little while, we will dip them in chocolate. And this recipe came from my childhood love of Almond Joy and Mounds. So instead of eating those things, I figured out how to make them myself. Now, one thing you do have to suffer through as you watch my class is cleaning as I go, because I think it's something that we have to learn to do in the kitchen. If you're not cleaning as you go, you are faced with a sink full of disaster. And then you lose your heart for cooking because it just seems like work. But if you clean as you go, then it's not such a big deal. You know, you're done. You turn around and all you have to do is serve the meal. So for
Didn't you
me,
have a recipe called Nipples of Naples or something?
nipples of Venus. Not nipples of Naples. Nice try. Nipples of Venus. I do. And they're a cookie, actually. They're a baked cookie. And while I'm cleaning, I'll tell you a funny story. I got in a lot of trouble posting those cookies because someone got really offended that I was demeaning women's breasts. And I'm like, no, it's about the story of Saint Agatha. And anyway, it was quite a mess on social media, which is a sewer. But other than that, so I tend to clean as I go, as you can see, and it's quick, but you gotta do it, otherwise you'll have a mess on your hands, which I don't want to do. Okay. And you can see it took no time at all. So the next thing we're going to make is pasta e fagioli, which is pasta and beans. And it's a typical, what they call cucina povere, which is the poor kitchen. And it's a typical meal in Italian cooking for people who are not well funded, shall we say. So it's a soup that made with whatever vegetables you have in the fridge, white beans or chickpeas, but usually not a dark bean, and then cooked pasta. Now, many people cook their pasta in the pasta fagioli. Never, 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 as we say in Italian, mai, never. Okay, so we're gonna start with some extra virgin olive oil. No, don't turn it on yet, hun. About, I don't know, whatever floats your boat. You're gonna saute. Then we're gonna take a whole clove of garlic and place it in that olive oil and then turn on the flame while we prep the rest of the veggies. In Italian cooking, authentic Italian cooking, what they don't do is chop up big amounts of garlic and throw it in the pan and have this huge flavor of garlic. What they do instead is create a nuance of garlic. And they either put in a whole clove like this, cut the clove in half or quarters, and then they take it out, or sometimes they leave it in. To me, it depends on my mood. Very often, I put the whole clove in like this, let it color a little bit and take it out. But sometimes I leave it in as a treat that we then press onto bread because it gets very soft, okay? So what do you think? Want me to leave it in or take it out, hon?
Leave it in.
Leave it in? Okay, want me to cut it in half?
It looks like there are two of them here.
Well, it's kind of a twin.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cut it in half?
Yeah, cut it in half, put it back in.
All right. Here we go. So it's a big clove, so we're cutting it in half and we're leaving it in. Then we're going to add to it a little bit of diced onion. As you can see, some of my ingredients are, you know, a started onion, a started celery, a started carrot, a piece of cauliflower, a cut zucchini. Doesn't matter. You want to use what's available. Tiny pinch of salt. And we're gonna let these onions sweat until I have some other veggies prepped. You can let them go till they're translucent, which will make them sweeter. Or since your garlic is going to be mild, you can just saute them for a little bit and let them have a stronger taste. It's your call. The next thing to go in is celery. So I have whole celery from our local which is community sponsored agriculture. So you buy, in America, we buy a share of a farm. So the celery has beautiful greens, which will go into the soup at the end. And we're going to dice this. Remember, when you make soup, you want to finely dice your ingredients so that everything becomes sweet. Because the job of soup in your cooking is to relax the digestive tract so that you can digest the rest of your meal efficiently. So they're going to go on top of the onions. And this particular pasta fagioli I make in a skillet. It cooks more quickly, something. Another pinch of salt. And it's a nice thick stew-like soup. Not very brothy. It's more like a stew. Okay. Next thing to go in is carrot. I'm just going to take off the bottom and the top a little bit. Cut the carrot in half lengthwise. And then into spears. When you're chopping your veg, your goal is not to be fast, although that does make you want to cook more because you're efficient. Your job is to make sure that the pieces of the veggies are relatively the same size. So everything cooks evenly and becomes sweet, right? So you see how those are all pretty much the same size and the same size as the celery. They're going to go in. Remember, I'm just making soup for two. And we don't like a lot of leftover soup in our house. We're really big on making fresh soup so that you get the full benefit of it. If I make a lot of soup, sometimes I'll freeze it if I know I have like a big, a big day coming up or a big, busy week. Next, I'm taking some zucchini because I happen to have it. I'm going to cut that into spears. And then because the zucchini is kind of thick, I'm going to cut those spears again in half so I get that nice dice that I wanted. You can change up these veggies however you like based on whatever is available, whatever you can get, whatever's seasonal, whatever your family likes. If your family hates zucchini, I'm going to suggest you leave it out of the soup. If they love zucchini, put it in. If they hate carrots, well, I can imagine who hates carrots, but anyway, that's a whole other story. And then the next veggie I'm going to add, you can put as many or as few vegetables as you like in pasta fagioli because it's peasant soup. The next thing I'm going to add to this is cauliflower. I'm going to take what's left of my core and chop it, right? Because the core of your veggie, the stem of the broccoli, the stem of the kale, the stem of the cauliflower, is sort of like the highway that drew them into the veg. Years ago, I made this actual version of this recipe on TV. Italian woman called our office completely irate that I had put cauliflower in pasta fagioli, and clearly it showed that I was half Irish because you never, ever put cauliflower in pasta fagioli, except I always do. And so did my nonna, who was from Naples. But you may put potatoes, whatever you have, literally whatever you have, that's a nice soup veggie. I mean, you don't want to put things like cucumbers in there, but you do want to use some nice veg. You want to stir between each one. What do you think, hon? Potato or no?
No.
No? Okay. Okay. So once the veggies are shiny with oil, like this, now we can add, these are Italian white beans. They're not cannellini, they're Great Northern, but I did bring them back from Italy, and they are partially cooked. You can also use canned beans to make this quicker, but I really do not love the flavor of canned beans, so that's your call. So the beans and the little bit of cooking liquid that's left is in there. They're about 80% cooked because they do have to cook in this, in this dish. So I didn't want them to turn into mush. I still want people to recognize that there's beans in here. And so now goes in a combination of fresh and canned tomatoes. So I'm using cherry tomatoes because they're lowest in the alkaloid solanine that can affect our joints. And it doesn't really matter because they're cooked. But in our world, even in the summer when tomatoes are at their height, we really don't use a lot of big tomatoes because of solanine. We tend to use smaller ones like this. They're sweeter, they're more like candy, they're easier on the body. We
And
love
they're
them.
an Israeli invention.
They are. That is true, actually.
Yeah.
And then the next thing to go in are actually canned cherry tomatoes from Sardinia that I'm in love with. I mean, in love. Talk about blue zones. Oy, oy, oy. And then what I do is I go in before they get hot and I break them apart so that they become sort of a coarse gravy in the soup. You can do this, you can chop them if you want to, but I tend to do it by hand. It's I don't know, it's how my Nonna did it, and it's kind of how I do it. And now the next thing we'll add to this will be, I take the jar that my tomatoes were in, and I'm gonna add enough water to cover my ingredients right now. I don't want to waste any of the tomato juice. So that's going to go in there like that. And then we're going to let this come to a boil. And then as it cooks over the next 15 minutes or so, I'll see if I need to add more liquid. When you make a soup, if you start like this with the ingredients just covered by your liquid, you'll never need to make a stock, ever. Because when the veggies cook in a lesser amount of liquid, what happens is they become sweeter. And so the broth is sweeter. So then when you add the balance of your liquid, if you need it, then you have this lovely sweet soup and you don't have to make stock. I mean, if you want to make stock, but I tend to be lazier and busier and I don't make stock ever. And people tend to think that I do because my soups are really nicely flavored. It's a shame you won't taste them. But today, anyway, maybe one day. But anyway, so that's how I do soup. So that's our pasta fagioli. And that's going to simmer for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And while that simmers, I have to make a salad. But first I'm going to turn on the pasta water for the pasta fagioli. We cook our pasta separately. And you season the water very well with salt. And you do that because you want the pasta to have flavor. If you don't season your water strongly, your pasta, you also don't cook your pasta in a huge pot of water for a smaller pasta so that you can actually see it in the water, almost out of the water. It's almost just covered because it gives the pasta more flavor. And of course, you all know you're going to cook it al dente. We're going to cook it about 80% done, and then it's going to go into the soup to finish because you want that little bit of starch to thicken up your soup a little bit so it's more like a stew. But you don't want to put your pasta in the soup to cook because, first of all, if you cook your soup longer than you're expecting, now your pasta's mush, and that's disgusting and an insulin trigger. And number two, it's disgusting. And number three, the pasta doesn't taste good. So you want to cook your pasta separately. I know it's an extra pan, but it will be worth it if you do this. Okay.
And you clean as you go.
And you clean as you go, so it doesn't really matter. And all greens, the celery greens and this fresh parsley are going to get stirred into the soup when I serve it, right? You guys know when you make soup, you want to garnish it with something fresh so that you kind of lift the energy up and create balance, because soup tends to cook for a while. If there's beans in it, protein is heavy. So now you need yin and yang. You need to yin it up with a lot of greens or scallions or chives or parsley, whatever you can get. I use a lot when I make a thick soup so that it really kind of lifts the flavor. Okay, next, we are going to work on our salad. And this salad is designed for digestion, right? The soup is meant to nourish us. The dessert, digestion, the dessert is, well, dessert. And then the salad is designed for digestion and for our liver. We all know in Chinese medicine that the liver is responsible for, and science, responsible for metabolism, as well as helping the body to detox. It also is the precursor to you becoming patient, impatient, irritable, or not irritable. So if you take care of your liver, you tend to be a happier camper, and everyone around you is happier as a result. So you're nicer when you have a good liver. So we're making a salad that has lots of bitter taste, and then we'll dress it with some lemon, and all of this is designed to help the liver to be a happier camper. So in this salad bowl, I have fresh baby arugula that we just picked up at the farm market this morning, and it's really beautiful. And if you notice, the leaves are rounder, right? This is fall arugula. In the summer, these leaves tend to be pointier and have little pointed edges. So arugula is in season in the spring and in the fall. So those, which are the times when the weather's the most chill and when bodies are the most changeable, right? Because we don't know whether it's hot or cold, or it's 70 today and 30 tomorrow kind of thing. So this helps the liver to adjust to those temperature changes. The other thing to go into the salad is fennel. And so I'm going to take the fennel bulb, trim the bottom off. Actually, I should move this bulb because it's blocking the light. And we're going to thinly slice it. You can use a mandolin if you like, but I find mandolins to be terrifying. So I tend to use my knife. I also think that you really need to develop knife skills. So you want to use your knife as often as you can. Right? One of the things that holds people back from cooking is their inability to chop and slice and dice with any kind of efficiency or speed. So I tend to encourage people to use their knife. And you want to get nice thin pieces. This salad has both sweet and savory notes to it. It's one of my favorite salads in the world. It's very, very Italian. So the fennel is going to go right on top of our baby arugula. And we're going to clean the cutting board real quick because the salad bowl has to move back here. And in the meantime, the pasta for the pasta fagioli is going to go into our boiling water. So you can use any kind of small pasta. I tend to use this one's a very unique mixed pasta. The pasta showing out of the water. That's what you want when you cook your pasta. This one's called la mista corta. I will. La mista corta is just a bunch of mixed up pasta shapes that were probably rejects at some point. And now they made a pasta out of them. They made a pasta shape out of them. And it's really nice in a soup, but you can also use elbows or tiny shells. And this pasta usually cooks for 8 minutes. So we're going to cook it for 6 to 7. Lower the soup a little and go back to the salad. See how the soup's boiling? But it's kind of juicy because of the tomatoes and the zucchini. So I don't really think I'm going to add more liquid. I'm going to have leftover soup today, Robert, because
Good.
that's a lot of soup. Okay.
So
Now we're gonna
would you
take a fresh
serve,
arm.
would you serve this soup to someone with arthritis, the tomato soup?
I would actually. I mean, unless their arthritis was
Chronic.
really inflamed at any particular moment, because once the tomatoes are number one canned and then cooked, then because the majority of this is canned tomatoes, you really remove the effect of the solanine, and then you give them the antioxidant effect of the lycopene that's in there. So tomatoes are kind of this paradoxical food that if you're eating them like an apple, you're going to suffer with arthritis. If you're eating them cooked, as most Italians do, arthritis becomes less of an issue. But if you're really in an aggravated state, then make the soup without the tomatoes. It's just a lovely vegetable bean soup, no tomatoes, more liquid, and you add the pasta. That's, so I was never not a fan of that whole throw out the baby with the bathwater thing that we do, but so often in macrobiotics back in the day when we were all so rigid. So now you're going to take an orange and using a sharp knife, you're going to kind of peel down around the flesh, removing the pith, which is the bitter white, and trying not to take away too much of the actual orange so that you have it.
If you look at the pith,
We haven't lost a lot of the meat of the orange. It's mostly the white pith, which is bitter. And if you can't get it all off, then, it's not the end of the world. Okay, then we're going to do, you don't have to do this next step. Now you can just take it, cut it in half, slice the orange, but we're going to do something called supreming. So you want to take and hold your orange over the salad. And you see this little membrane right here? You're going to lay your knife right next to it like that and cut toward the center. Then you're going to come over to the next membrane and cut and lift it out. You need a sharp knife to do this. Then you're going to go right on the other side of that membrane and go again and lift the orange out. And you're thinking to yourself, why would I do this? You do it because otherwise you're biting down on this sort of tissuey membrane instead of getting the beautiful juiciness of the orange on its own.
now you can also use grapefruit in this,
You can use grapefruit. Yeah,
or
you can use grapefruit.
tangerine.
Tangerine is also really nice this time of year. The recipe I'm making is the classic.
Right.
You can vary it however you like. You could put raspberries in the spring and then just call it something else. The only thing you can't get rid of is the arugula and the fennel because you kind of need those. Then at the end, you take what's left of your orange and squeeze it. And this becomes your vinegar. Right? Instead of using it, you're going to use this. Some people also add balsamic vinegar to this salad. I tend to not do that. And the reason that I don't do that is that the oil that I'm going to use is a lemon scented oil from the Amalfi Coast. You can use straight olive oil. You can, any lemon scented oil, I'm sure they have them in Israel you can use. I'm going to use this.
I found a 12-year balsamic vinegar. This is incredible. Oh, it's amazing.
Delicious, right?
Yeah.
And then a little salt, and not much salt because the last thing to go in are olives, black olives. Now, these are pitted because I was feeling lazy when I bought them. And I tend to take the olives and chop them rather than put them in whole so that they get scattered through the salad a little bit more. It's just a rough chop. And if you don't want to chop them, you want to put them in whole because it's beautiful, that's up to you.
And you can put them in with the pits too.
And you can also put them in with the pits, but then you really have to remind your guests that they're in there with the pits because otherwise, yikes. All right, clean my board. I always, please get into this practice of cleaning your cutting board in between veggies so that number one, you don't have chaos on your cutting board that you can't focus. And number two, everything tastes like itself because it didn't get sort of affected by the olives, didn't affect the orange, didn't affect the arugula, didn't affect the fennel. And then you toss your salad, as they say in Italy, come un pazzesco, like a crazy person. You just keep tossing so that everything gets mixed. Nobody bites down on a big lump of salt that didn't get mixed in, or olives, or, so you just mix. You know how when you make a cake batter, I tell you to stop mixing when everything is combined? With a salad, mix to your heart's content. And you also notice that it's reducing down in volume as the salt and the olives and the acid from the oranges reduces it. So there's the orange and fennel salad. I will, as Julia Child taught me, clean the rim of the bowl.
Yes, we get to the salad.
Yeah, just a tiny bit because there's olives. So not much, but some. So there's our salad ready to go. It's a beautiful salad. I tend to not add anything to it like tomatoes or whatever. It is what it stands on its own as it is. Okay, now my pasta's 20 seconds away. From going quickly. I'm not a taster, but I do tend to check my beans for tenderness. Still need to cook, maybe 10 minutes. So the pasta is going to drain and sit and wait. I don't want to throw it in there. It's too early. I mean, the good news for you is you see how I cook. The bad news for you is you see how I cook at home. Right? I don't use recipes. I don't really follow a whole lot of rules. These are just, the pasta is just going to rest now, and it'll stick a little, and that's okay. I'll unstick it when it goes in soup. Everything's easy. You don't have to panic or, right? But honey, give me 10 minutes on the timer. Thanks. So now it's time to melt some chocolate for our little treats. Bring the sink. Okay. Make a little space so that I can work here. My veggies over here. I'll put those away later. It's too distracting to do that now. All right, but you guys can see this is my pantry, right? This is my kitchen. This is my pantry. My pots and pans live in the cabinet below. So the way my kitchen is set up for work is that it's very efficient. I go from, I'm gonna set that over there, hon. I go from the fridge to the sink, to the cutting board, to the stove, right? I don't run around carrying a million things in my arms. I just can move easily. And what you want to do is make your kitchen as efficient as you can so that you're not struggling. Okay.
How much longer you got?
I don't know. I gotta just melt some chocolate. Hold on. I don't want to run over. Gannat. I'm trying to find my
you're
little
doing
pan.
great, and you're fine if you do.
Where is that little pan? Use another little pan. I'll use this one. Okay. These are my overflow pans. So I'm going to make a ganache. And the way I'm going to do that is, I usually use water. I know a ganache has cream and sugar. I use water and a little bit of brown rice syrup. Because, I don't know, it saves calories not using milks. I don't buy the packaging of the milks, which I don't like. And I really like it this way. So that's going to come to the boil. And we need a glass bowl. With some dark chocolate chips, non-dairy dark chocolate chips. The ones I use are stevia sweetened. I don't know that you guys can get them. In fact, I'm going to probably go with no. But
We do have them.
Trade.
For the Israelis, we have them at Nitzat Duvdavan at the store. Yeah.
Excellent.
Which brand?
Ooh. I will go show you.
Is it a brand we know?
Nope. Don't think so.
So what you're going to do simply is bring your liquid to a high rolling boil. And then, Just fluffing my pasta. Okay, soup's cooking, waiting for this to boil. Are there any questions I need to address while I wait for the liquid to boil? Everybody good?
I'm dominating the conversation. I'd like to know, when you add the parsley to the soup, do you add
When I
all
serve
of
it. Yeah,
do
in this particular soup, I am going to use all of this green because the soup is thicker and has pasta and it's more like a stew. I really want to freshen it up.
So
I
it
don't
means if you
normally-
have leftovers, it's going to
I
be
would add
cooked parsley.
probably this much parsley as a garnish, like that. But because of the nature of this soup and there's beans and macaroni, I tend to do a lot more greens, a lot more garnish. You could use any green too. You could use kale or whatever.
I'm just
I
saying
tend-
that it'll be old if you serve another serving. If you reheat it, it's going to have.
True. Then you'll just stir more in.
Yeah, that's right.
Or you stir part, or you
Or I
take out.
stir part in. Or you know what I do? A lot of times what I'll do is put the soup in a
That's
bowl and
49%.
mound the greens on top and then stir it in.
Okay, yep, okay.
Got that?
They look
Jeanette,
good.
what's the 49%?
What's
That's the 49%
39%.
is cocoa powder.
it's 61% here, it says. So
And
she's
what's the
asking,
rest?
what's the rest?
Probably cocoa butter. If there's stevia, it's not sugar.
Right.
Okay. So now my liquid
Stevia.
is hot enough and it's going to get poured over my chocolate. Sorry, Robert, I know I'm using the wrong hand, so you can't really see that part. And then with a whisk, I'm going to go in and simply mix this. At first, it seems like, oh my goodness, this is a mess. And then suddenly it will turn creamy and smooth and silky and shiny, but you have to let it do that on its own. You have to be patient and zen.
It has some chocolate.
So that, yeah, this is chocolate. You could also temper the chocolate for this, but these usually don't last very long, so it's not like I have to worry about them melting again. So, and especially since I've only made a few to garnish a cake, I'm just gonna beat this until it comes under submission. Sometimes the stevia sweetened chocolate that is difficult to get to melt smoothly.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's because of the stevia or the fact that because it's a non-dairy chocolate, they have the chocolate hold its temper with fiber. And so it becomes more difficult to melt, to get into this nice smooth state that I need. So if you have any questions, now that this is like watching paint dry, while I do this, it's like literally like watching paint dry.
Maybe it'd be okay if it had pieces in it, chunks.
Yeah, it is okay if it has pieces.
That's not big enough.
Well, it'll thicken. The thing about this particular chocolate that I'm using, even if I were to leave these pieces in there, which is actually not a bad idea, I gotta say. If I let this stand for a couple seconds, it'll thicken because of the fiber they use instead of dairy. So you can actually see they're not melting for some reason today. Of course, because I'm teaching an international class where I'm supposed to be some kind of expert. My food is rebelling against me, but that's all right. Everybody's food rebels against them. Aveline Kushi once said to me, for every great dish, there's 100 disasters. And she was correct.
Well, I saw Aveline Kushi blow up a pressure cooker.
Me too.
Yeah, I was so happy.
I've seen Christina blow up. a
I blew up a pressure
I
cooker.
have too.
I was in San Francisco. it was, I don't know if you have the phrase there, but we have a phrase here called ladies who lunch. And it's, very proper types. And they actually had picture hats on at this demo I was doing and a class I was doing. And the host said, could you demonstrate how to use a pressure cooker? Because these people really want to learn how to use a pressure cooker. And I'm like, okay. So I have azuki beans, of course, azuki beans, of course, what else? In the pressure cooker to show them how to do it, and the pressure cooker lid blows up. And in the front row were ladies in gloves and hats dripping azuki bean water, as was I. So yeah, anyway, I didn't get invited back. So this has thickened quite a bit. There's still unmelted chocolate in there, but I'm going to go with your advice, it's going over them anyway. So now I'm going to take a spoon, and you've got these icy cold little coconut guys, and over them will go this coating of chocolate. And then they're going to go back in the fridge until the chocolate sets. And then you just eat them, or in my case, put them in the center of the bundt cake as a added treat. Now, some people just put enough of this chocolate coating on the top, sort of like almost like a crown. I'm more of a let's enrobe them as much as we can in chocolate because it's chocolate. And, as sacrilegious as chocolate is to some people, is as sacred as it is to me. So these are going to go back in the fridge, but there they are. They look a little bit of a mess, but in a while, they'll look better. But there are the almond balls, and it goes till the chocolate sets. That's that. And then now let's check our soup one more time, see if my beans are tender, so I can put the pasta in. And then you have the option of seasoning your soup with either white miso to give it like a cheesy finish, or just salt, which is traditional Italian. There they are.
Use white miso.
You want to use white miso, honey?
Yeah.
All right. So now the noodles go in. Goodness, I didn't have to sit too long. There they go. Okay, so they're going to sit on top for a second. I'm going to grab some white miso.
There's only chickpea.
It's only chickpea, okay. Robert, come over here for 1 second. Just so you guys can see, this is my fridge. It's wall-to-wall veggies, miso, olives, right? You want to keep your fridge stocked in a way that you can walk in the door, open the fridge, and cook. Right? You never want to struggle with, what am I going to make because I don't have enough stuff. Okay. So, and of course, it's as your budget allows, of course.
And all those veggies are for just the two of you.
Yeah, that's for a week.
We eat a lot
We eat a lot of veggies, a lot. By the time breakfast is over, Ganat, we've probably had 10 different veggies. Not 10 servings, but 10 veggies.
Maybe more.
Now I'm probably going to use a good tablespoon of miso because there's 3 cups of water. And you want to use about a teaspoon of miso for every.
You want a whisk? That's a little thick.
Nope, I don't need a whisk.
This miso is a little thicker.
It's okay. I got it. And then you want to make sure your soup is down to a simmer, right? You all know if that's before you don't want to oil miso.
This is chickpea miso.
Yeah, this is chickpea, which is a version of white miso. But it's going to give me that same sort of cheesy finish. And that's going to go back in. I'm going to give this whole thing a stir to blend it and get the pasta throughout. I'm so excited to eat this dish for lunch. I wish you guys were here to enjoy it with us because this is one of our favorite things in the world. And I kind of came up with this dish by mistake. One day I was making beans and veggies and I was like, I don't know, that doesn't really look abundant enough. And so I threw some pasta in and voila, as we say. So now we're going to take and chop our greens. real quick. Now they don't have to be really fine in this case because, you know, it's the garnish, but it's also part of the soup. It's part of the heartiness of the soup. So it's not like you have to get this to a super fine chop. Like usually my garnishes are about like this. I don't tend to turn them into a pesto. I kind of want you to know they're there. Right there like that. I'll take that later. But now we're done with it. One last stir. And this is done. So here we have our pasta fagioli. Yum. We have our fennel salad, which you saw earlier for digestion. This is obviously your main course, the soup. And then we have, it's a rather light little treat. It's 2 bites, enough to satisfy your sweet tooth, not enough to land heavy on your butt. And you get like the best of both worlds. So if there's any questions, I'll take them. If not, good night, I did it. I'm only 5 minutes over.
You did excellently.
I have one question.
Yeah.
So this, okay, great. Thank you. That was awesome. My question is, when you make a big pot of soup and you take your miso and you put it into the big pot, and that's what the previous chef did too. So Carol, so
I don't. This is gonna. I know this is a shallow skillet, but this is going to be a big bowl of pasta and beans for Robert and I for lunch. There won't be a leftover. If I'm making soup, I rarely do, that will be leftover, then I don't add miso to the whole pot. I add miso to what we're eating and the rest gets put away. And then I add the miso when I heat it up again, because you know, you don't want to heat your miso. You could heat it once. So if there is leftover of this today, on that rare occasion, because there's pasta and beans involved, if there is this leftover, I will heat it one more time with very careful consideration of not boiling it. You know, it'll take a long time to heat and my pasta will get too mushy, but I'd rather have mushy pasta than compromise miso. But usually if I batch of soup, I won't see.
Thank you. Awesome.
You're welcome.
What was the ratio of the miso to water?
It's about a teaspoon of miso for every cup of liquid that you add to the soup. I usually don't go heavier than that because then it's too salty. At the end of the day, salt is salt. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? All right, guys.
Can you talk about nutritional yeast? Do you ever use that?
I can talk about it real quick. I don't use it. I think it's fine every now and then as a treat, but I also think as a yeast, it can contribute to bloating in the intestinal tract. It doesn't contribute to candida. It's not that kind of yeast, but I don't get it. Like, I don't get why we would use it. It doesn't taste like cheese to me. It tastes like yeast all the time. It's not a flavor profile I like, and I like the fact that it can cause expansion in the intestines. I just don't care for it. It's never in my pantry. I can't remember the last time I used it.
Okay,
But
good.
if you like it and it agrees with you, it's an okay thing to use now and then. It's a treat. It's not an everyday, I think I want that cheese flavor again thing.
It's good on popcorn.
Ah,
Yeah, I don't like it on popcorn. I like olive oil and garlic. Popcorn, that's it. But a lot of people do like it. So, you know, use it carefully is all I'll say. Use it carefully. Okay? Well, if there's nothing else, Ginat, thank you again so much for inviting me.
Oh, Christine.
And your summit was successful all day. And thank you all for staying awake and up at the, till later in the night. And thanks so much. And have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Christina and Robert. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Ciao, guys.
Bye.
But to have Christine.